The Wild Boy of Aveyron, 1976, written by American psychologist Harlan Lane, tells the story of Victor of Aveyron, a feral child discovered in 1800 near the southern French town of Aveyron and brought to Paris for study by the pioneering French scientist Jean-Marc Gaspard Itard. Victor lived with Itard for several years as the scientist attempted, though with limited success, to teach him language. The techniques Itard developed during his work with Victor later proved valuable in his efforts with deaf, mute, and mentally disabled children, earning him recognition as the founder of special education. Alongside narrating this history, Lane provides a specialist's analysis of Itard's findings and his lasting impact on Lane's own academic field. The story begins in 1800 when a naked boy, estimated to be about 12 years old, is spotted wandering the forests near Aveyron. Captured and taken to a local priest, it becomes clear that the boy feels no shame about his nudity or bodily functions, cannot speak, and is primarily driven by the basic needs of eating, sleeping, and escaping. The priest, believing the boy to be more animal than human, hands him over to a naturalist in the nearby town of Itard. This naturalist trains the boy as he would his dogs, using a leash and housebreaking him to use the garden as a toilet. The naturalist publishes a book about the boy, attracting the attention of the wider scientific community. Victor is then placed under the care of Roch-Ambroise Sicard, director of the Paris Institute for Deaf Mutes. Sicard finds Victor completely unresponsive and gathers a team led by psychiatrist Philippe Pinel, who declare the boy an idiot, meaning developmentally disabled. The usual fate for someone labeled an idiot was confinement in an asylum, but Jean-Marc Itard, a 25-year-old scientist, disagrees with this diagnosis and requests to study Victor himself. Itard takes Victor into his home and begins a 6-year experiment to discover what the boy can learn. He names him Victor, and believing empathy and language to be the defining traits of humanity, hypothesizes that Victor can be taught both. Itard receives help from Madame Gen, a compassionate widow who becomes a kind of foster mother to Victor. After 6 months, Itard reports initial progress to the Society of Observers of Man, showing improvements in Victor's behavior and intellectual abilities. However, he does not provide another report until 5 years later, when he admits that progress has nearly stopped. While Victor has learned some basic word recognition and shown signs of empathy, he has not acquired speech. Itard notes significant barriers to further development. In his report, Itard argues that his work with Victor supports the psychological truth that the ability to learn through imitation diminishes sharply after a certain age, a theory still accepted today. He also observes that Victor's puberty arrives suddenly and intensely, casting doubt on the origins of certain natural emotional responses in humans. Itard reported that Victor seemed to have little or no innate understanding of his sexual organs or their connection to the other sex. This observation suggests that sexual behavior is learned rather than instinctual. Victor died 20 years later, remaining a ward of the state. Meanwhile, Itard went on to have a groundbreaking career in science and medicine. He developed teaching methods for the deaf, mute, and mentally disabled, and made foundational contributions to otolaryngology. During his work with deaf and mute children, Itard refined a key insight first inspired by his time with Victor, that emotional development is closely linked to intellectual growth. He wrote, "How false is that opinion of certain moralists who have believed that there is nothing in common between the mind and feelings." Lane offers some professional critique of Itard's methods. He suggests that Itard likely made a mistake by isolating Victor from other children of his own age, a misguided attempt at total pedagogy. Lane also argues that Victor should have been taught sign language, in which he showed much greater aptitude than for spoken language. Itard's insistence on focusing solely on speech reflected a then-current debate over the value of sign language. Lane further criticizes the earlier report by Philippe Pinel, which labeled Victor an idiot, calling it flawed and puzzling in its enduring influence. Ultimately, Lane agrees with Itard's analysis that Victor was likely a normal child. His survival in the wild and the progress he made with Itard suggest he was not developmentally disabled. Rather, as Itard concluded, Victor's case provides strong evidence for a critical period in childhood during which spoken language must be acquired. After about age 12, it is too late for a normal human to learn to speak. Interestingly, Lane proposes that Itard himself may have reconsidered Victor's teachability. In a later report on his work with deaf-mute students, Itard cautioned educators to work only with those proven able to learn, adding, "Having once been gravely mistaken on this point, I take note of it here." Lane implies that Itard was reflecting on Victor, suggesting that he may have come to believe Victor was ultimately unteachable. Although Itard may have regarded his efforts with Victor as a failure, his work unquestionably laid the foundation for an extraordinary career and lasting legacy. As Lane summarizes, Itard had set out to train an enfant sauvage. By the end of his journey, he had become the originator of instructional devices, the inventor of behavior modification, the first speech and hearing specialist, founder of otolaryngology, creator of oral education for the deaf, and father of special education for the mentally and physically handicapped. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, leave a like and subscribe.